we're doing women in military also. I'm Martin Sanchez, Erica, Ashley. And I'm pretty sure it's on women's impact in World War II, because many people believe that in World War II, women, they were just nurses. That's all they did. That's what's portrayed in the media and the papers and in the movies. Women are just nurses, but they did a lot more than that. And there's a lot of branches. There's the three main branches that are made just for women. The Women's Air Force Service Pilots was the first group that allowed women to actually fly military aircrafts. And they flew every type of aircraft, like they flew the bombers, the jets, everything. And their main purpose was to free men up for combat. So a lot of these women, they did non-combat missions, but they were still there was still danger. 38 women were killed during World War II when they were doing their missions. A lot of them were either trainers or they moved aircraft from the factories to bases. They did recon. They did a lot of things like this. And the 38 women who were killed, they weren't allowed the same military traditions of funerals as men were. Like they weren't allowed to have the U.S. military flag on their coffin as men were. And Women's Army Corps allowed women other than nurses to serve in the U.S. Army. And these women, they were forecasters, cryptographers, radio operators, repair workers, and training instructors. These women, they did a lot of the same work as their opposite men did, but they were paid less and they didn't receive any military benefits as the men did. And the United States Marine Corps Reserve the Marine Corps was the last branch of military to actually allow women to join. And because the Marines it's the man's branch, it's the most strict, the toughest one. And when it was created, there was a lot of opposition because they didn't want women wearing Marines uniform. But these women went through the same training as the Marine men did. And actually about 85% of Marines who were assigned to headquarters, they were women. So they were actually in control. They were actually at the headquarters doing everything. Some important women during this time in the branches. Jacqueline Cochran, she was a well-known test pilot, and she was aviation pioneer for women. She broke many records, speed records, distance records, in airplanes. And she was actually the creator and first director of the Women's Air Force Reserve Pilots. And she trained 1,074 of the women pilots. And she received the United States Distinguished Service for her participation with the Women's Air Force Service Pilots. She also received the gold medal, and she was later inducted as the first woman in the Aviation Hall of Fame. Aveda Hobby, she was also the first director of the Women's Army Corps and responsible for much of the unit's success. Hobby, she was very ladylike, and she was actually very smart and into women's rights. She attended the University of Texas Law School. She was also in an organization called for Women's Voters, and she also participated in the Parliament for Texas. And she was a very into the Women's Army Corps. She did a lot to help the public get out what they were actually doing and what they were. And she later received the Distinguished Gold Medal for all she did for the Women's Army Corps. And Ruth Streeter, she was actually the first director of the United States Marine Corps Women's Reserve. And her position was questioned because she had a family when she was assigned this job. She was married and she had 3 kids. And a lot of people thought that this will distract her because she's over there. It's like she has kids, and how is she going to command all these women? Where she thinking about her kids? But she actually did a really great job, and she actually became the first woman to become a major in the Marines. And she also ended up being the highest ranked officer when she became a colonel later on. And she received the Legion of Merit for outstanding service with the Marine Corps.
My presentation is on women soldiers' sacrifices in the military. Military women still face difficult circumstances as the military women did in the past. Today, women soldiers are not considered taught or strong enough for some military as a one soldier who was in the Air Force, she was like an inch or too short to be a pilot, which was one of her dream jobs. So she instead had to choose something else. Some women soldiers deal with custody battles while they are sent overseas, due to their being gone for months at a time. So the fathers would feel that they no longer should have custody over the kids, and that it was harmful for the children, not having their mother there all the time. And like one of the other presentations stated that their kids would be grown up, or they wouldn't even know them anymore. They wouldn't listen to them anymore. And also the fathers just didn't, like for one instance, one of them was divorced, and the father didn't want the kids to stay with the stepdad, so he fought for custody and won, and took custody away from her. Women in the military are getting assaulted and raped, some not able to get justice. Instead, they are accused of lying and are sometimes even demoted from their position. Aline Cushman, she was a soldier who risked her life serving as a Union spy in 1863. Cushman was captured by the Army of Tennessee until the state had to evacuate, and she was able to escape. It was not until Cushman's death on December 1st, 1893, she was given a full recognition with a formal funeral with a historical burial plot in the officers' circle at the Presidio National Cemetery located in San Francisco. Being that she was a former actress before she went to the as a Union spy, she was never, I'm sure she was looking more for fame or something, some more consideration. She did receive one award, but it wasn't until her death that she got famous, which that happens for a lot of people. They're not famous, like artists, they're not famous until they pass away.
I did my presentation on women's struggles. Even when war was not going on, women in the military still have difficulty being equal to men. Women had to work harder to earn their promotions, which is their rank. Men held jobs that were harder in most cases. I compared my mother and my father because they were both in the Marine Corps. They went in around the same time. My dad in the delayed entry program in 1982, and my mom in November 1983. My dad moved up in rank way faster than my mom did, and my dad his job was being a heavy equipment operator, which is more complicated than what my mom was, an aviation supply clerk. So that was.
Okay, and so you see the difference in the presentations, how it's changing for women, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, compared to what your mom was limited to, that's interesting, right? And then Erica, what's the connection you have, you present information about more current, information about women in the military, and then you brought in Colleen Cushman, so what was the purpose of doing that?
Because she showed that in the past, now they're able to get like on TV shows, like if they come back from the war. She didn't get that really until her death.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, any other comments, questions? Very good, and it's nice Ashley was able to interview